So this summer, I'm once again going on a charity car event with Rally North America. This time we're doing the Northeastern United States. It's a 3,000-mile journey, and I'll be taking my dad and my son. AutoGuide has partnered up with Genesis Canada, and we will be driving this, the Genesis GV80.
Genesis GV80, Genesis GV80, Genesis GV80.
Over 1,600 miles or 2,600 kilometers, going through 2 countries and several states and provinces. This wasn't the usual test that we get to do. It was better than that. We got to really live with the GV80 how an owner would. I found plenty of highs and some lows over my week with the car, and I'll go through them section by section really quickly here. All right, so let's start with the looks, because that's an easy one. I got so many compliments on how this looks inside and out. Anyone who rode in it were really impressed with how luxurious and how modern yet kind of funky it looks. And on the outside, I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I didn't really find anyone who didn't like the styling or at least weren't offended by it. Most, though, thought this was a great looking vehicle, and I have to agree, especially in the dark blue. That will lead us now into a little bit of the luxury. And on the luxury front, again, the GV80 has everything you'd expect. These seats are super comfortable. They adjust in so many ways. The driver has a massage seat. And the nice thing is on long drives, the car would automatically kick in different massage programs for posture or lower back relief or various other things, which was not expected and quite nice. The front 2 seats and the outside middle row seats are both heated and ventilated, which helped a lot on the long trips because pretty much every day was really hot. And some days we were hopping in and out of the vehicle consistently, so even my son, who's not used to this feature, really appreciated the ventilation. Now, he also claimed even with the automatic climate control set to low for the middle row, it never got cool enough for him. But once I set the 3rd row on, it seemed to be okay. So it's just important to note, even if no one's in that 3rd row, you probably want all 3 zones going to get the right heat or cool. Well, on those long drives, we appreciated the suspension, especially in normal comfort mode. It is just that, it's quite comfortable. It's noticeably stiffer in sport, and the GV80 is not really ever that sporty. Those who've driven the G70 or the GV70 and appreciate its sporty character, and I'm one of those people, this is very different. This leans more towards a Lexus RX than a BMW X5. I still think it kind of walks in between the two, but it's definitely more comfort orientated than all out performance. Like I said, putting it in sport and the decent sized tires, it held its own when we did a couple of pace laps around the track, but it's not an engaging midsize SUV. And that's also reflected in the powertrain. There's the Turbo 4, the Turbo 6, and the upgraded Turbo 6 makes decent power, and it really does play in the heart of the segment against, like the X5 40i X-Drive and the Turbo 6-cylinder GLE. I do wish there was a step up, and this kind of ties into the fuel economy. Now, it's rated at 16 miles per gallon city and 22 miles per gallon highway, which isn't all that great. Over the course of my drive, we did get 21.5 miles per gallon average, and that involved more highway than city, but we did climb through some mountains and do some spirited driving, so that's pretty impressive that it pretty much hit the high end of its fuel economy. But if there was, let's say a high-powered plug-in hybrid version that could get even better fuel economy and have 450 horsepower, I think that would go a long way for this vehicle. Around the city, power is more than adequate. You actually can feel the grunt. It makes a decent sound, but it's when you're on the highway or climbing those mountain passes that you have to kick down quite a few gears to really get the forward momentum you're looking for. Again, it's never struggling, but you kind of get accustomed to a vehicle in this class and price to just feel a little more responsive. But unlike a lot of vehicles in this class and otherwise, it never hunts for gears when cruising. You just get it to the speed you want on the highway, whether it's a 60 mile an hour limit, a 70, an 80. it's comfortable at any of those levels, and it tracks really straight. I actually really enjoyed the centering steer assist on this vehicle. It doesn't ping pong around, and once you get it centered, it stays pretty much right in the lane, and you can feel it tugging a little bit on the wheel to keep you centered. But you just, combo of the car and the driver's inputs, it can go for hours without much effort. The downside, like any of these systems, is when you hit construction or sometimes really dark tar lines on the highway, it will try to pull you, and it's quite strong. You have to wrestle it back. That wasn't the only electronic thing I didn't like. There's so many cool safety systems about driver attention and driver distraction, and the car will yell at you if it feels your eyes aren't on the road, or if you're getting drowsy, it'll tell you to take a break. And if you're distracted, it once again will give you a warning. I kept getting my eyes weren't on the road warnings, even though they were. Now I was wearing sunglasses, so maybe that was throwing it off a bit, but it happened more often than it should have. The odd time it actually caught me maybe looking at something like this at the side of the road, but most of the time I was looking straight ahead. So it's a setting I'd probably turn off. The fatigue setting too would go off randomly. Maybe it's more time-based than actually monitoring the driver, but when I was perfectly fine after driving a couple hours, it would tell me to take a break. Other times when I was tired, it wouldn't give me a warning. But none of these systems are 100% perfect yet, and this one is getting there. As far as the single panel dual screen, this is one of the better ones considering there's very minimal buttons. That does have the control dial in the middle or touchscreen. I found I was just really using touchscreen because it's really easy to find everything I want between Maps, Apple CarPlay, satellite radio. And then I had a dial on the steering wheel to adjust my volume. Down here with my drive modes, I had another dial to adjust those if I wanted to put it in better comfort or more sport, depending on the situation. It just really overall was a great long distance cruiser. For anything from an hour drive across the city to a multi-state tour to even a cross-continent adventure, I would recommend this vehicle. Maybe not for 7 people, but that's just this class. But for 4 or 5, it would be perfect. It holds a lot of gear. Nothing ever went wrong. Now, I'm not expecting something to go wrong with a new car, but there's usually a little annoyance here or there. And other than the car telling me I was more distracted than I thought it was, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, everything went the way it should. Genesis has come so far in such a short period of time, and this vehicle shows that it can really play at the lower end of the mid-size luxury market. And I feel if they wanted to attack the higher end, they'd be fine there too. So I'm really curious to see what happens in the long run. So as I said, it doesn't quite have the super squishy comfiness of a Lexus RX, and it doesn't have the sporty reflexes of a BMW X5 40i, but it's in between the two. And I think it finds good middle ground. It probably leans a little more towards the Lexus than the BMW. It's just a nice all-around package that's as concerned about every passenger in the vehicle and not just the driver. And for what I used it for, that's exactly what I wanted, so I can't complain. During our week away, I had some other people catch a ride with us here and there. Everyone who came in were really impressed by the comfort and just the smoothness of the vehicle. And these are some people who weren't coming from like necessarily hard riding Mustangs or modified Corvettes. One quick thing to note, a lot of luxury cars have features which may seem a bit gimmicky, and to me the soft closed doors have always been one of those. But on this trip, the amount of times my son or my father only half closed their door to then have the vehicle fully shut it was really nice. I would say there's a couple dozen times this happened, and it was nice not having to say, hey, open and close your door again. So you know what, maybe it's not as much of a gimmick as I thought. Well, it's starting to rain again. It seems to have all that's been happening the last couple weeks. So I'll just wrap it up with this. The GV80 may not be a perfect vehicle, but nothing is. There's a couple things I'd change, but as it stands, it's a really well put together package. And for those that are looking for a multi-passenger, comfortable cruiser, this is really worth a look.